100 times more oil and gas company taxes than imports, and supporting the Scottish oil and gas industry has a gross value added of £96 million to the UK compared to zero from imports. Everyone else understands it, so please, can the Secretary of State explain to everyone in the country what on earth is this government playing at?
Mr. Speaker, there is an aching gap, the width of the North Sea, between what he says and what they did. The reality is, for all of his conversations and protestations now about supporting Scottish oil and gas industry workers, what is the reality? Under his government, we lost a third of the North Sea's workforce. They failed time and time again to come up with a plan, and it falls to Labour once again to clean up their mess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 5.
Secretary of State.
My honourable friend and I both know that the Tartan Army will be out in full force supporting Scotland's FIFA World Cup campaign this summer. The UK Government is working with partners in the host countries and the SFA to provide guidance to supporters on travel security and consular assistance. We are determined to help everyone have a fantastic and safe World Cup, hopefully beyond the group stages.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite fears of trade tariffs, I've checked, and the price of a pint of beer in Boston, Massachusetts, where Scotland are due to play their first game, is about $8 a pint. And that's a bargain, Mr. Speaker, because the SNP want to charge their fans £750 a pint to have a drink with the member for Aberdeen South, who unusually is not in his seat today. Now, I'm always open for a pint with the opposition, but would the Secretary of State rather have a beer in Boston with the Tartan Army or have a pint of bitter with the SNP?
Mr. Speaker, can I commend my honourable friend for his question? I'm not sure I'm going to be coming down the road to have a pint with the member for Aberdeen South anytime soon. In fact, come to think of it, I'd walk 500 miles to avoid having a beer and a blether with him.
Speak short.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm quite surprised at that last question there, because one of the things that Scotland qualifying for the World Cup brings is a unity to the nation. We're all looking forward to Scotland competing for the first time since 1998, and we're all going to get selfies. It'll be us with the Tartan Army. Do you think there's any chance that we'll get a photograph with the First Minister and Anas Sarwar?
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I just respectively point out that we qualified under a Labour government this time, and the last time when I was there in the Stade de France, it was a UK Labour government.
John Lowe.
Speaker, question number 6.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Scotland's hospitality businesses at the heart of our high streets and communities are the engines of Scotland's economy. The UK Government has helped businesses across the country by stabilising public finances, focusing on driving economic growth and putting more money in people's pockets. In Scotland, of course, key levers such as rates, business development, skills and planning are devolved to the Scottish Government. So perhaps the honourable members in the SNP benches can explain why the Scottish Government has failed so miserably to support Scotland's hospitality sector in the way it deserves.
John Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week I met with Nick and Trish, who own Burt's Hotel in Melrose. Like many other people have done, they explained the immense pressure they're under as a result of her government's jobs tax and the SNP government's eye-watering hike in business rates. So does the Minister think that the government's increase in employers' national insurance has helped or hindered the hospitality sector?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our changes to employers' national insurance were part of raising the revenue needed for the changes in public services from which his constituents will benefit, and mine, due to the record settlement for the Scottish Government. I would just say to the honourable gentleman, however, that protestations of fealty to the hospitality sector would ring more true had 7,000 pubs not shut under the Conservatives.
Please, Patricia Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, any support for Scottish hospitality businesses is welcome. However, the recent Scottish budget simply tinkers around the edges, with many businesses still falling for a 400% tax rise hike. Does my honourable friend agree that a fundamental overhaul and redesign of the current system is required, and so that we can deliver a stronger economic growth in Scotland?
My honourable friend is, as usual, quite correct. Scottish businesses are facing eye-watering rate hikes, while the SNP government tinkers around the edges of a fundamentally broken system. Meanwhile, Anna Starmer has been clear. Scottish Labour would revive our high streets with a fundamental overhaul of business rates. Right now, jobs and businesses are at risk, and we want to reset the balance between our local businesses and the online giant.
Shadow Secretary of State Andrew Barr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, given the Secretary of State still expects us to believe the Prime Minister has faith in Anna Starmer's judgment, it's quite clear the Labour Party can still have a laugh. But they do seem to have an aversion to having fun. Why else would they be waging a war against Scottish pubs? Because just like Scottish Labour's election campaign, the sector in Scotland is hanging on by a thread. Last year, one pub in Scotland closed every single week. But it isn't just pubs, cafes, restaurants, chip shops, all facing the same. So will he and his Scottish Labour colleagues join Russell Finlay and the Scottish Conservatives in our call for a pubs and hospitality business to be exempt from business rates rises this year? And will he do what he can to ensure his government stands up for Scottish hospitality? That would surely be something to raise a glass to.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the honourable gentleman heard me about the Conservatives' record. 7,000 pubs lost under their watch. A package of support has, of course, been presented by my right honourable friend for pubs in England by the Treasury, meaning that there is already extra money for the Scottish Government to spend in this area. So I would encourage Scottish Government ministers to step up support for the hospitality sector using the Barnett consequentials that this Government has already provided.
Right. Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, can I welcome into the gallery the Speaker of the Parliament of Fiji and the President of the European Parliament. We start with questions to Prime Minister Edega.
Number one, sir.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 4 years into Putin's barbaric assault, the courage of Ukrainians burns bright. We are extending sanctuary to Ukrainians in their time of need, providing the weapons and aid to support them in their fight for a just peace. We're degrading Russia's economy and planning for a ceasefire that protects Ukraine's sovereignty. That support will never falter. And yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I recommitted to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people that we stand with them in the fight for freedom, democracy and the values that we all hold dear. Mr. Speaker, let me also congratulate Team GB for their superb performance in the Winter Olympics. They are brilliant ambassadors for our country, and I know the Paralympics GB will also do us proud. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I associate myself with the remarks of the Prime Minister in respect of Team GB and Ukraine. A great former Prime Minister once said, "U-turn if you want to, the lady's not for turning." Like the leader of my party today, she was a leader of principle and backbone. But we know this current government is no stranger to the U-turn. So given that, can I gently tempt the Prime Minister to add one more to the current tally to help get Britain working again by backing the fantastic shops and businesses in Melton Mowbray Town Centre and high streets across my constituency and beyond to succeed and grow by scrapping the government's business rate changes that will hit so many of them hard in April?
Well, it's good to see him in good form, particularly, if I may say so, after his health scare, which he and I have discussed a number of times. He discusses a former leader of his party. He was the former health minister, I think, who presided over record waiting lists. He was the former prison minister who left the prisons overcrowding. And he was the former economy minister under Liz Truss. We're picking up the mess and we're turning it around.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much welcome the fact that our Labour government
has recognised the state of Palestine, and I also welcome the Foreign Secretary's statement last week as Chair of the UN Security Council, setting out the UK's commitment to increasing humanitarian access to Gaza and advancing a two-state solution. Does the Prime Minister agree that protecting civilians, upholding international law and supporting Palestinian-led governments are essential for a lasting peace?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank her for raising this really important issue, because the ceasefire in Gaza remains fragile and protecting Israeli and Palestinian civilians is critical to the next phase of the peace plan. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of our commitment to a two-state solution, and we will be hosting a peace-building conference in March to build lasting peace and security for both Palestine and Israel. Hamas must decommission its weapons, destroy its terrorist infrastructure, and can have no future role in running Gaza. And Mr. Speaker, whilst aid flows have increased, the level of need is still dire, and the Israeli government must stop blocking supplies and preventing work of international NGOs. That is unconscionable, and it is costing Palestinian lives.
We come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate this side of the House with the Prime Minister's comments about Ukraine and Team GB? Mr. Speaker, before the Prime Minister and I became MPs, parties of every colour increased the cost of going to university. The system is now at breaking point for graduates. I believe the student loans have become a debt trap. It is time for all of us to do something about it. Will he cut interest rates on student loans?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have to say I was glad to learn that the Leader of the Opposition has finally admitted that they scammed the country on this. And that applies to everything they did in government. We inherited their broken student loans system. We've already introduced maintenance grants to improve the situation, which they scrapped. And we will look at ways to make it fairer. And we will do other things within the economy to help students. What other things they say? The news this morning, Mr. Speaker, 7 a.m, energy bills coming down by £117 for millions of families and young people struggling. That's guaranteed money off bills in April, driven by the action that this Labour government has taken. We promised to cut the cost of living. We are cutting the cost of living.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him if he would cut interest rates on student loans. No answer. And for the record, energy bills are still higher than when he came into office. He keeps talking about the last government. In case he hasn't noticed, my party is under new leadership. A lot of people wish his was too, including the backbenchers sitting behind him. But let's talk again about student loans and student fees even. Because to win the Labour leadership, yes, with Labour together, the Prime Minister promised to abolish tuition fees. In opposition, the Education Secretary said, graduates, you will pay less under a Labour government. I wonder what happened to those people. But can the Prime Minister tell us whether graduates are paying more or less under Labour?
Prime Minister.
Certainly many in her party are under new leadership, Mr. Speaker. They're up there. The only change she's brought to her party is to make it smaller. And she talks about interest rates on loans. Mr. Speaker, not only have energy prices come down this morning, but since we were last here across the dispatch box, inflation has fallen as well, which has a huge impact on interest rates. Fallen to 3%. And the Bank of England say it's going to keep on falling. That's only happening because of the decisions that we made at the budget, opposed by the party opposite. They talk about the cost of living. This government is taking action, and under their watch, inflation was 11%, which crippled the state of finances for students as their loan rates went up.
Mr. Speaker, I am amazed that while we're trying to talk about student loans, the Prime Minister has the cheek to talk about my party being smaller. His party is smaller too, including one MP who was arrested for child sex offences. So perhaps before he gets on his high horse, he should ask why his backbenchers are saying that they're being called the Pedo Defenders Party. Yes. So why don't we get back? So if he... Yes, I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I know it makes them... Yes.
Sorry. OK, let's have less. No.
I know they don't like it, Mr. Speaker.
Does the honourable member want to leave at this stage? Just understand, I want to hear the question, because it's very important that I do hear, because may have to make a judgment. So I don't need any more shouting.
I know they don't like it, Mr. Speaker, but I haven't said anything that's not true, have I? So perhaps they should get off their high horse, stop making stupid jokes, and why don't we talk about student loans? Policies that may have been fine for 2012 with low interest rates are not fine for 2026. The fact is, graduates are paying more, not less. On Monday, the Schools Minister was asked on the BBC why Labour froze the repayment thresholds. She said the government has, and I quote, huge pressures. Those pressures have been created by his taxes and his borrowing to pay for more welfare. Why is the Prime Minister taking from students to give to Benefit Street?
What a nerve. Under their government, student loan thresholds were frozen for 10 years. 10 years. They broke the system. They did it with a bloke over there when they were in coalition together, and we're fixing it. Now, she used to say just a few weeks ago that she was going to focus on the economy at the exclusion of everything else. So I'm doing her a favour by bringing it back to the economy, because 117, desperate to talk about the economy, £117 off energy bills, inflation going down. The other thing that was confirmed on Friday, Mr. Speaker, borrowing is coming down, the biggest surplus on record. That means we've got the economy back under control. We're fixing the public finances. Now, I know the party of Liz Truss don't understand any of this, but she should welcome those changes when she next stands up.
Mr. Speaker, he says they're fixing the student loan system. How? He wasn't even talking about this until I raised it. The fact is, those policies...
And it goes for the row as well. Chair Select Committee expects a standard, not to shout somebody down.
Mr. Speaker...
I don't need any back chat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. He's only talking about student loans now because I raised it. He says they're fixing the problem. The fact is, he's not. Why is it that I'm willing to ditch old Conservative policies that don't work and he wants to keep them? He's not going to do anything about it at all. On Monday, they voted to increase benefits yet again. The fact is, he is taking money out of the pockets of graduates and giving it to people who are not working. It is not fair. It is not just that he is saddling graduates with debt. It's not just that he is saddling graduates with debt. Yesterday, the Bank of England, yes, where she used to work in customer services. Yesterday, the Bank of England... Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the Bank of England said that his policies are fueling youth unemployment. That's not us, that's the Bank of England. For the first time ever, youth unemployment is now higher here than it is in the EU. And while he blames everyone else, our young people can't get jobs, they are losing hope and even leaving the country. Will the Prime Minister tell us how he plans to deal with it?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, she says she's ditching failed Tory policies. It's a very long list. 14 years of list. And it starts with the word sorry. And when she says that word, we'll take her seriously. And Mr. Speaker, she talks about the Bank of England. The Bank of England have reduced interest rates 6 times. We've seen the fall in energy bills. Inflation is coming down. Borrowing is coming down. She hasn't welcomed any of that. And if she wanted to talk about the economy, she wanted to talk anything other than the economy. Perhaps she'll welcome the surge in retail sales as well. People are spending more on our high streets because of the action that we took. Wages boosted for millions of workers, opposed by the party opposite. Free breakfast clubs, opposed by the party opposite. Free childcare, opposed by the party opposite. Every measure we're taking to improve the economy, what do? They oppose it.
Mr. Speaker, he is desperate to talk about the last government so that he can distract from the mess that he is making now. The fact is, he is the Prime Minister today. This is a man who got legislation in to fix his own pension, just him, no one else's. He won't sort out student loans for other people. He has no plan to get young people into work. He has no plan to help graduates get out of the debt trap. They can complain as much as they like. These are facts. 411 MPs, and not a single one of them has any imagination. We are the ones doing all the thinking. Yes, he has already... Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has already made 15 U-turns. Will he make another one next week at the Spring Statement to fix the student loans system?
She wants me to talk about this government. Bills down under this government, £117. Inflation down under this government. Surplus up, record. Resales down. She won't welcome the economic news, but the business community is welcoming the plan. Business confidence is up. The FTSE's at a record high. The President of the British Chamber of Commerce has said this is the year our economy can turn around. Her miserable strategy of talking down the economy isn't working because Labour's got a plan for Britain.
Mr. Speaker, it'll only turn around this year if he stops being the leader. Perhaps they can do something about that. He wants us to welcome economic news. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to welcome the fact that youth unemployment is at its highest ever. I am not going to welcome the fact that unemployment has increased every single month under this Labour government. He is not doing anything about student loans because he is not governing. And he is not governing because he cannot govern. He is distracted by Labour scandal after Labour scandal. Mr. Speaker, even today now, there is an inquiry into the Inquiries Minister. That is all that they have offered since they came in. The defining moment of this man's premiership will not be breakfast clubs. It will be the sight of the man he appointed as ambassador to Washington just last year getting arrested. No wonder they're calling themselves all sorts of things. He needs to stop moaning about us and start fixing his useless government. Why should the country have to put up with 3 more years of this?
Yet again, she's shown why she is so utterly irrelevant. Harping from the sidelines, trying to talk down the economy.
Hello. Please, I want to hear the question. So do your constituents, Prime Minister.
All she does is carp from the sidelines, talk the economy down, talk the country down. In the meantime, because of our work, what is happening? Energy bills down, as announced this morning. Inflation down. Borrowing down. And what's up? Retail spending is up. Investment is up. Business confidence is up. That's the difference a Labour government makes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Residents in Stanley, in my constituency, are very excited about having their say on how to spend the £20 million of Pride in Place funding that Stanley South has received as one of the 250 most deprived neighbourhoods in the country. There are other villages and areas in North Durham that are too small to qualify for Pride in Place at the moment, but also urgently in need of investment. For instance, Grange Villa, New Kyo and the Avenues area of Chesley Street. Will the Prime Minister consider an additional wave of Pride in Place funding to target smaller, more concentrated areas of deprivation?
Well, I thank him for that, and I know how meaningful Pride in Place investment is to his constituents. We're backing communities with the funding and the powers they need to invest in their priorities, which is unleashing jobs, growth and opportunity. In answer to his question, I can confirm that the next wave of Pride in Place will invest in an additional 169 neighbourhoods, focused on smaller areas, looking closely at deprivation. We're reversing the austerity that ripped the heart out of our high streets and our communities and giving local people a real say over how money is spent.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Can I join the Prime Minister in congratulating Team GB on our most successful Winter Olympics ever? And can I also join him in solidarity with our Ukrainian allies and friends after 4 years of them resisting Vladimir Putin's war machine? Mr. Speaker, the former Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, has raised deeply shocking concerns that Jeffrey Epstein may have used British airports and even RAF bases to traffic young women and girls in and out of our country. This is appalling. The Prime Minister knows that I agree with Gordon Brown that there needs to be a full public inquiry into all this. If he doesn't agree with Gordon Brown, will he, at the very least, commit to releasing the flight logs and related documents? Will he wait for the House to force the government to do that?
Prime Minister.
Well, I think it's important to appreciate there's obviously a police investigation going on, and I think it's right, and I'm sure he agrees with this, that that has to go wherever the evidence takes it, and we have to let that investigation run its course before deciding what next action needs to be taken.
Sir Ed Davey.
I think we all agree that police investigations should take priority, but that doesn't rule out a public inquiry, and it certainly doesn't rule out releasing the flight logs, which I think really should be. Mr. Speaker, on a different note, it's been revealed the trustee of William Blake House, a care home for adults with profound disabilities, embezzled £1 million. There are very few homes in the country which offer this sort of care, and now it faces closure. As a father of a disabled son myself, can I tell the Prime Minister this situation is one of my worst nightmares? It's one of the worst nightmares of many parents with disabled adult children. The families of the residents have put forward a rescue plan to take over William Blake House and run it themselves. It will require HMRC resolving the debt issue and the Charity Commission to appoint an independent board. So will the Prime Minister meet with the families and back their plan?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this case, which is obviously a cause of considerable concern, and of course I'll make sure that the relevant meeting is put in place for all of the individuals who need that meeting.
Mr. Speaker, given the recent challenges to the Equality Act, will the Prime Minister commit to protecting those laws which prevent discrimination at work and in society, making sure that women aren't fired for being pregnant and ensuring that everyone is treated fairly, regardless of their sex, race or disability?
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the Equality Act that was passed by the last Labour government. We will always fight for working people, and compare that to reform, who want to go back to the dark days where people can be discriminated against because of who they are, ripping up protections for workers and renters, and ending the right for grieving parents to take a few days off work if the worst should ever happen to their child. But, Mr. Speaker, I also have to raise this. A death threat was shared by Reform's Deputy Council leader in Lancashire against the brilliant member for Bolsover. It said she should be shot. When death threats were made against the member for Clacton, I stood at this dispatch box and condemned them outright. If he has any decency or backbone, he will stand up, apologise, condemn the comments and sack the individual in his parties. Will he do so?
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the age of 14, Michel Mandarin was forcibly removed from his home, the coral atoll of Ile-de-Quoi, dumped on the quayside of Mauritius, forced to live on food scraps out of bins. He has resettled those islands and yet now faces a removal order from yet another Labour government. So maybe twice in one lifetime, he's going to be asked to leave his homeland. Can I ask the Prime Minister, for a government that is full of human rights lawyers, within and without, why do the opinions and human rights of Indigenous Chagossians not matter to him at all?
Prime Minister. So he has neither the decency nor the backbone to condemn a death threat to a member of this House, whichever party they are in. He doesn't have the decency or the backbone to condemn it and to sack the individual. And that just shows that his party have got nothing to offer the country but grievance and division. Look at their candidate in Gorton and Denton, a man who says anyone who isn't white cannot be English. No wonder he's been endorsed by Tommy Robinson. It doesn't represent our country, and anybody who wants to stand against that hatred and division should vote Labour on Thursday tomorrow in Gorton and Denton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Prime Minister update the House on how the government is tackling the misuse of illegal drugs? And will he reassure parents in my constituency of Rugby and across the country that Labour will continue to disagree with the views and the voices of those who think that it is a good idea to legalise Class A drugs like heroin and crack cocaine?
Prime Minister. Can I thank him for raising that? We are working relentlessly to tackle the supply of illegal drugs and expanding police powers to test more suspects upon arrest. The Green Party's policy isn't just irresponsible, it's reprehensible. Legalising, Mr. Speaker, cocaine, heroin, ketamine and the date rape drug GHB, a drug which we know is used to spike drinks for women. Now, whilst we're making that an offence, the Green Party's proposals would shatter lives, increase antisocial behaviour and see drugs use running rife. And I have to say, as the father of a 17-and-a-half-year-old son, the idea that the argument is being made by the Greens that when he turns 18 in just a few months it would be lawful to provide him with heroin and crack cocaine is absolutely disgusting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister recently stated we will not allow the powerful to treat justice as optional. He was talking about Epstein's enablers. But my constituent, who uses the pseudonym Isabella, has asked me to ask the PM whether his words also apply to those who assisted Britain's Epstein and Mohammed Al-Fayed, a monster who, with others, abused her and hundreds of other women and girls in a human trafficking scandal that the Met, unlike the French authorities, are still refusing to treat as such. So will the Prime Minister ensure sufficient resources are committed to fully investigating this multi-perpetrator, multi-jurisdictional, multi-decade trafficking outrage and meet with Isabella and her fellow victims to understand the terrible scale of this shocking crime?
Well, can I thank you for raising this really important case on behalf of really important victims, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House are with those victims. Every report of sexual offence should be treated seriously, every victim should be treated with dignity, and every investigation should be conducted professionally. The Safeguarding Minister is meeting the victims, and I will make sure that his constituent is part and included in those meetings. If he gives me the full details, I'll make sure that happens.
Imran Hussain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we have all heard the horrific news that a man entered Manchester Central Mosque last night in this, the holy month of Ramadan, carrying weapons, including a hammer, a knife and an axe. Mr. Speaker, violent and Islamophobic attacks against the Muslim community are becoming far too frequent in our country. Prime Minister, is it not the case that every single politician in this place, and I mean every politician, especially that lot over there. Mr. Speaker, they may nod their heads, but this morning we could have woken up to a horrific terrorist attack, killing innocent Muslim worshippers only for being Muslim. Prime Minister, is it not the case that every single politician in this place and every single journalist has a responsibility to stop fanning the flames of hatred against the Muslim community?
Minister. Well, can I thank him for raising this really important case and tell him that I share his deep concern and the deep concern of the community over the incident at Manchester Central Mosque, particularly during the holy month of Ramadan. And we will not and must not relent in the fight against anti-Muslim hatred. We must not. Mr. Speaker, I remember visiting Peacehaven Mosque in the wake of the awful attack there. And when I did, I committed £40 million to protect mosques and community centres. It's a shame that we have to do that, but we do have to do it. And we're establishing a new fund to monitor anti-Muslim hatred and support victims. And I want to reassure my honourable friend and the House that we will fight hatred and protect freedom of worship in this country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bicester is one of the fastest growing towns in the country, but the town will be cut in two when rail services start between Oxford and Cambridge and the London Road level crossing closes. Campaigners were ignored by the Conservative administrations for over a decade, but today we're in touching distance of a solution. East West Rail has a detailed plan for an underpass, the Rail Minister is fully engaged, we have financial support from the County Council, and thousands of local residents have pledged £1 to go underground. So can the Prime Minister now confirm that the Government will back the plan and keep London Road open?
Minister. I thank him, and I know he shares our support for East West Rail, which is a vital project that will deliver better journeys, tens of thousands of jobs and unlock up to 100,000 new homes. I agree that access to Bicester must be maintained. Access to Bicester Village must be maintained, my children say, as well. And I think the company have put forward two options on replacing the crossing, and I'll reassure him and his constituents that they will have the opportunity to express their views during the upcoming consultation into relation what would work for them. Thank you.
Davis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The regeneration of the Belper Mills, a large site with buildings, including Grade 1 listed ones dating from the start of the Industrial Revolution at the heart of the East Midlands' only UNESCO World Heritage Site, took a significant step forward last week when planning permission for its redevelopment and conservation was finally granted. The government wants to provide more housing, rightly so, and sites like this, though while very challenging, provide a very important opportunity to support that aspiration and share our national story. Can the Prime Minister tell me what support the government is giving to regenerate at-risk listed buildings and whether we are delivering support to train construction workers in heritage building techniques? And can I ask him to take a personal interest in the Belper Mills because it is an internationally significant site?
Prime Minister. Thank you for raising this, because restoring Belper Mills is not just about delivering the housing his constituents want, but about restoring an iconic World Heritage Site in the East Midlands. We're investing over £1.2 billion in skills, supporting apprenticeships, including courses focused on heritage construction, and recruiting 60,000 more construction workers and backing new technical excellence colleges, so we have the workforce to build the homes the country needs.
Adam Downs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In January last year, Somerset received around 2,000 pothole reports. This January, it was nearly 7,000, a 250% increase. I recently stood on the Fossway in my constituency, where one resident had blown a tyre and another one was checking the damage under his cars. Families and small businesses are paying the price. Rural counties like Somerset have some of the largest rural networks in the country, yet funding does not reflect that reality. Will the Prime Minister commit to fairer funding for rural areas so we can properly maintain and resurface our roads rather than constantly patching them up?
Prime Minister. Well, I thank him, and I know how important it is that we fix the crumbling roads that we inherited from the party opposite. His county council will receive over £225 million as part of our £7.3 billion investment to tackle potholes. We're also implementing tough new standards, so councils have to prove they're fixing the roads properly, and delivering £78 billion for councils to ensure they can deliver excellent local services.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In 2024, 2.64 million animals were used in the UK in medical experiments. As chair of the all-party group in phasing out animals in medical research, I think it's important to note that an estimated 92% of drugs fail in human clinical trials, even though they have passed preclinical tests, including animal tests. Innovative non-animal research methods are increasingly available and provide viable alternatives. Whilst I very much welcome our Replacing Animals in Science strategy, for this to be meaningful, a robust implementation timeline must be set. I ask the Prime Minister to consider that we lead the way and start by introducing an immediate ban on the use of dogs in these often horrific experiments.
Well, can I thank her for her dedicated work on this, and we are committed to phasing out animal testing wherever possible. Last year's strategy, backed by £75 million, will accelerate new alternative testing methods. Alongside banning puppy farming and introducing stronger standards for zoos, we're ensuring the UK is a world leader in animal welfare.
Robin Moore.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In 2014, a man in my constituency was ambushed, violently beaten with a pickaxe handle and left lying in the street with serious injuries. At the time of the conviction, the judge called it a brutal attack. Mr Speaker, many constituents have contacted me to express their concern that the perpetrator of this attack is still a sitting Labour councillor in Keighley and was recently pictured celebrating an election with convicted crack cocaine and heroin dealers. Prime Minister, on behalf of all victims of serious crime, will you, as the leader of the Labour Party, ensure that Councillor Mohsen Hussain is not permitted to stand in the local elections this May?
Prime Minister. I thank you for raising this. I will look into it straight away and give him a full answer.
Sir Edwards.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Order. Mr Benton Glenn, you're getting carried away with some other colleagues behind you. Mr Davis and others, please. Sir Edwards.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Prime Minister, I need your help. Today, alongside leading trade bodies, including UK Hospitality, the Federation of Small Businesses and the Startup Coalition, I am launching the TNT Charter, the Trust and Transparency in Business Energy, to blow up the status quo and support SME access to fair contracts, clearer pricing and stronger accountability. I know that the Prime Minister recognises this as an issue, so can I ask him to deploy powers to bring greater transparency, fairness and competition to the Wild West that is commercial energy?
Mr Speaker, we inherited the highest industrial energy costs in Europe because of the failed policy of the party opposite. Our British industry supercharger is cutting bills for major industries, but she's right to champion the SMEs as well. I can confirm we will appoint Ofgem to regulate and stamp out exploitation by third-party intermediaries, helping to reduce bills, and I'll make sure that she gets a meeting with the ministers to discuss the issues that she's raised with me.
Stephen Guthrie.
Mr Speaker, even the embarrassingly loyal Scottish Labour Party seem to have lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Can I say to the Prime Minister, please don't let that put you off coming and campaigning in Scotland on your government's record. But can he tell us why is it that those who are so close to him have abandoned him, given the government's record?
Prime Minister.
I remember when they used to sit down here, didn't they, before the election, Mr Speaker, and now they sit up there because we won the general election in 2024 with a landslide majority.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. From this April, Springside Special School in Rochdale will open its first ever free breakfast club. That's a big change enabled by this Labour government, and one that the head teacher, Mrs Fierro, said will make a big change to all the parents and children at her school. But Rochdale's growing popularity and growing population desperately needs a new secondary school. So will the Prime Minister arrange with me to have a meeting with the DFE to get our secondary school over the line to help all children in mainstream and in SEND get more provision?
Well, we're determined to halve the disadvantage gap and give all children the best start in life. I'm delighted to see a free breakfast club opening in his constituency in Rochdale. Our actions will lift over 500,000 children out of poverty, and the party's opposite policy is to say they'd plunge them straight back into poverty, which is disgraceful. And through our actions to reform the SEND system, we'll create an inclusive system so that every child can go as far as their ability and talents will take them.
Roger Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you will recall that some months ago I asked the Prime Minister why, as the Director of Public Prosecutions, he did not bring charges against Mohammed Fayed for rape and for assault. And the Prime Minister replied that this did not cross his desk. I understand that the Met Police delivered 2 dossiers to the Crown Prosecution Service. So if the Prime Minister didn't see them, who did? And could he tell the House when he expects the Metropolitan Police to bring charges against those who aided and abetted Fayed?
Prime Minister.
I stand by my answer. Hundreds of thousands of files are submitted to the Prosecution Service every year. It is important that the investigation is going on. I can't tell him when the decision will be made or what the decision will be, as he well knows, but it is important that every allegation is properly investigated and properly dealt with according to the law.
Final question, Kelvin Benn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 4 years after Russia's illegal invasion, Britain backs Ukraine's fight for freedom. The same freedoms that Labour used to forge NATO to defend. But while Ukraine fights to join NATO, the Green Party wants to break it up. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that as war continues and as Russia broadens its attacks across Europe, those who attack NATO are betraying our security? And, to coin a phrase, are they becoming Putin's useful idiots?
Well, my honourable and gallant friend is absolutely right. Our support for Ukraine is unwavering. And yesterday, I chaired the Coalition of the Willing Call and announced new sanctions to weaken Putin's war machine. The Greens, by contrast, want to pull out of NATO and negotiate with Putin our nuclear deterrent. And Reform are still parroting Kremlin talking points after their leader in Wales was jailed for taking Russian bribes. Both of them are weak on NATO and soft on Putin.
Completes Prime Minister's questions.
To ask His Majesty's Government to give us an update on the situation with regards to the Diego Garcia American military base and the British Indian overseas territories, especially in the light of the recent comments of the American President.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, His Majesty's Government's objective has been and continues to be to secure the long-term effective operation of the military base on Diego Garcia. It is a base critical for our national security and helping to keep the British people safe. It is a key strategic military asset for both the United Kingdom and the United States. It has enabled our shared security for nearly 60 years. When we came into government, it was clear that our ability to maintain our interest and control in the base was under threat. So this government had to take action to protect our military advantage and to stop our adversaries gaining a hold in such a strategically important part of the world. Refusing to act, Mr. Speaker, could have exposed one of our most valuable military assets to China. So, like any responsible government would, we negotiated a deal to protect our interests. This government inherited a situation where the operation of the base was in immediate jeopardy, and negotiations on a transfer of sovereignty to Mauritius was well advanced by the previous government. The deal delivers on our objective of maintaining the secure, effective operation of this vital military base. It would allow us to operate this joint UK-US base as we have always done. Mr. Speaker, this House knows that the government worked tirelessly with the United States in developing and testing the treaty to ensure that it met our shared security needs. That is why it was supported by 2 administrations. This is why Secretaries Rubio and Hegseth, and indeed President Trump himself, came out so strongly in favour when the treaty was signed in May last year. I can assure this House nothing in the treaty has changed since the US administration gave their original endorsement of the deal, and we continue to work with Mauritius and the United States. Mr. Speaker, the UK government has great sympathy for the Jacosian community. They feel a deep emotional connection with these islands. We have been clear in our regrets for the manner in which Jacosians were forcibly removed from the islands in the 60s and the 70s. We're working to resume a programme of heritage visits for members of that community. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work with both Mauritius and the United States on this agreement. As the Prime Minister has said, we have very close relations with the United States. That relationship matters profoundly, not just to our security, but to the prosperity and the stability that people here at home depend.
Joel Frosh. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the situation in America has changed, as you know. The British government went around America and said a whole load of things, such as it was legally necessary to give away the Chagos Islands, which, of course, wasn't true. Do not give away Diego Garcia. Capital letters from the American president. He likes capital letters in his posts. And all the other arguments have been well rehearsed. The fact that it could cost us up to 50 billion. The fact that the Chagosians weren't just badly treated then, they're being badly treated now because they resettled Ile-de-Quoi and they've got eviction notices from your government. But I can tell you this from my trip to the Maldives at the weekend. Something I hadn't realised, and I don't know whether the government knows it either. It is the Maldives that has the historical links with the Chagos Islands, both in terms of trade, in terms of archaeology. In fact, the islands, all the French did was rename the islands from the Maldivian language. There is no basis, historically, culturally, in any way, for Mauritius to have a claim on those islands. And the Maldives are upset for 2 reasons. One, there has been great stability in this region for decades. And what happens with this treaty, if it goes through, is you finish up with a turf war going on between India and China in the region, and that, indeed, has already started. And I wish to inform the government that we are just a few days away, in my opinion, from the Maldives issuing a counterclaim to the International Court of Justice to say if anybody has the right to the sovereignty of those islands, it is the Maldives and not Mauritius. And I would urge you to pause all of this.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Clacton suggests that we have gone around the American government. I have set out already in my response the extensive talks that we have had with both secretaries and indeed the President of the United States within recent months on this question. There was no question of going around the US government. The honourable member says, well, what has changed? Clearly, the view of the United States President may well have changed, but the treaty has not. We have discussed this treaty in great detail in this House. It is a treaty that emerges from talks initiated by the previous government and completed. Mr. Speaker, I would find it more plausible to hear chuntering from the benches on the other side from me were I not a diplomat in the Foreign Office during the period. They were negotiating this deal for 11 rounds.
Exactly.
I do understand that the members opposite, honourable and right honourable, wish to now distance themselves from the 11 rounds that they conducted. But let us at least...
Order. No one of us is sitting down, don't we? Look, people have put a UQ in. Others, members of this side, want to hear it. I want to hear it. I expect them to hear it. I expect them to hear it in silence. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Returning to the substance of the honourable member's question, I would just like to remind him that if he turned up with a selfie stick to RAF Waddington in Lincolnshire, a similarly sensitive military base, he would be turned away. I do not understand his surprise, or those who travelled with him, that when you sought over the weekend to film a video on a sensitive military site under the control of the UK. It is part of the British Indian overseas territories, as you know, and I would encourage the honourable member and indeed every member of the public to check British travellers.
Order. You keep saying you. I am absolutely not responsible about this filming or the involvement. Please, I'm being drawn into something I don't wish to be at this stage.
Mr. Speaker, I can only apologise for not seeking to draw you into such a flagrant incident of ignoring travel advice. The treaty is, as it was signed, it is going through both houses of Parliament. We are discussing this with our American colleagues. The fact that the honourable member sought to take a selfie video on the islands does not change any of those facts.
Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Could the Minister please assure the House that international law will apply to Diego Garcia, either by way of the ownership or the use of Diego Garcia, either by our military or the Americans?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for the question. Of course, the UK government will abide by international law and will continue to do so.
The Minister, Wendy Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labour's Chagos surrender is a shameful, unnecessary and reckless deal that leaves Britain weaker, poorer and less secure. This is not a legal necessity, it's a political choice made by a floundering Prime Minister, and it is British taxpayers who are left to pay the price. No other government would pay £35 billion to hand over its own sovereign territory and make its country less secure in the process. At a time when families are being squeezed, ministers are asking them to subsidise another country's budget, potentially funding tax cuts in Mauritius while taxes rise here at home. That's indefensible. So can the Minister confirm that no payments will be made under the treaty or the so-called strategic partnership unless and until ratification is fully complete? Because this is a national security crisis too. Diego Garcia is one of the most strategically vital military bases in the world, and yet ministers are pressing ahead before resolving the binding 1966 UK-US treaty, before addressing concerns raised by President Trump, and without guaranteeing that the lease can never collapse or be legally challenged. On UNCLOS, will he confirm that Article 298 provides an opt-out from compulsory dispute settlement for military activities, meaning this is a political choice, not an unavoidable legal trap? So I ask the government, will they suspend the bill until the legal position with the US is settled and any amendments have been scrutinised under CRAG? Will he confirm whether the Pelindaba Treaty would apply were Mauritius to take sovereignty? And if so, what ironclad safeguards protect our nuclear deterrent? And finally, what of the British Chagossians, some of them now on the islands? Can he guarantee there will be no forced removal and that their rights will be protected in full? Mr. Speaker, British sovereignty is not for sale, and this House should not be bounced into surrendering it.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, I would find the Conservative position more plausible had there not been 11 rounds of negotiations. The attempt from the other side, from both benches, to act as if though there was no issue here to be addressed, that the reason they started with 11 rounds was some sort of lack of focus. Well, if there was not an issue to address, I am not sure why you started, why honourable and right honourable members on the benches opposite began the negotiations. I can assure the House, Mr. Speaker, that, of course, the passage of the treaty will go through the full process of Parliament in the usual way, and we are discussing these questions with the Americans in the usual way.
Grimston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I say, risking the accusation of creeping, it's a great pity you aren't in charge of these negotiations. The deal we have come to, or are coming to, is inexplicable, both in principle and in costs to my constituents. And I very much doubt, at the time of the next general election, most Labour candidates, and indeed our manifesto, will point to the cost of £100 million a year and giving up ownership of these islands. Can I remind my honourable friend, and I'm sure he knows it off by heart, of page 120 of the Labour manifesto, which says, defending our security also means protecting the British overseas territories and Crown dependencies, including the Falklands and Gibraltar. Labour will always defend their sovereignty and right to self-determination. We haven't even consulted the Chagossians. Will my honourable friend not reconsider?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would not like to accept the connection being made between the British Indian Ocean territories and Gibraltar and the Falklands. We are four square behind the sovereignty of Gibraltar and the Falklands, who have repeatedly chosen to remain British, and long may it continue. So we are abiding by our manifesto commitments, Mr. Speaker. The issues around the continued operation of the base have been discussed many times in this chamber. They are being scrutinised in both chambers as the treaty goes through the full process that Parliament would expect, and that will continue.
Dr Alpington, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am acutely aware that this question comes in the aftermath of the Honourable Member for Clacton's attempted landing on the Chagos archipelago last week. And whilst I might admire the Honourable Member's audacity, I am deeply concerned that those actions trivialise what is indeed a deeply serious situation and potentially render the genuine grievances and injustices that Chagossians feel as a political backdrop to his social media feed. But I also have to acknowledge that the platform that the Honourable Member has only been created because of a vacuum that has been created by this government. Because the wheels have undoubtedly fallen off the government's negotiations. They failed to secure the support and consent of Chagossians. They seem now also to have lost the support of the President of the United States, and whilst any one of those things might be considered unfortunate, the combination of the two of them looks deeply careless. So can I ask the Minister, please, what is the status of the negotiations right now? What is the latest position of the United States? Will they also take on our very long-standing concerns about the rights of Chagossians? There is clearly not widespread consent here. Will they take on the points that we've been making in amendment after amendment and recognise that Chagossians have the right to self-determine their own future? And can he also accept our concerns about the finances to ensure that Britain isn't left as a leaseholder of these islands if a deal goes ahead without a sitting tenant?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Democrat spokesperson refers to amendments in the passage of the bill, and I'm sure he will understand why I will leave that to the Minister responsible for the bill conducting its passage. On the questions of the status of the negotiations, as I said, this is going through Parliament in the normal way. We are pausing in discussions with the United States, and those discussions continue.
Alex Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the member of Clacton has a number of additional jobs in combination with his responsibilities as an MP. But after his recent adventure, I hadn't realised small boat captain was amongst them. So maybe as a former Royal Marine, I can help him with his navigation. Can my honourable friend, the Minister, remind the member for Clacton what the penalty is for taking a trip to the British Indian Ocean Territory without a permit?
Minister.
My honourable friend paints the honourable member for Clacton as a captain, but I will decline the opportunity to be the sheriff on this occasion. The honourable member says stop the boats, but he did take a private jet there, which wasn't quite consistent with the small boat rhetoric that we usually hear from his party. I want to be clear that obviously there has been an attempt to land, indeed successful, on part of the British Indian Ocean territory. That is not an area fit for human habitation. It is an area in which British travel advice is very clear that one should not travel to. This House has discussed on many occasions the sensitivity of this base, of these islands. I would encourage everybody listening at home to attend to our travel advice. It is there for a reason.
Right. Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
As always, this argument doesn't depend on gimmicks, but on a detailed examination of the law.
Exactly.
Now, on the 22nd of May, the government made clear in an answer that they were bound by the international law of the sea. But in a written question on the 12th of February, the government said that Article 298, an opt-out on UNCLOS, still applies. So the law remains the same as in 2003 and 2020. This was a specific question asked by the opposition spokesman. We now want an answer. This is desperately important because this opt-out is vital for the Falklands and for Gibraltar.
Minister.
The Father of the House will appreciate that I'm probably not in a position to give him the full detail that he would like on the provision of UNCLOS 298. I am sure that as we discuss the passage of the bill, that this issue can be dealt with outside of the context of an urgent question.
Law.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I ask the Minister to engage in a short thought experiment? What would have been the reaction had senior members of the Labour Party in opposition, what would have been the reaction if they, at the time, had gone to lobby a foreign government against the best interests of the British Security Service? What would then the reaction of the right-wing media, who have made this their pet project, and the parties opposite be?
Minister.
It's a very good question from my honourable friend. Madam Deputy Speaker, when I was a diplomat, usually what we understood was that politicians British politicians that is, would not seek to undermine the British government overseas. We can argue in this place, but broadly we would try and keep our disputes on our own islands rather than going elsewhere to prosecute them. So I was surprised to see the vigour with which the benches opposite are seeking to undermine the process that we have been engaged in.
Sir Julian Lewis.
Will the government pause any steps in this matter until the judicial review proceedings being brought on behalf of the Chagosian people have been resolved one way or another in the High Court?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm endeavouring to answer the urgent element of the question and leave the question about the treaty and its passage through the two houses to that process, as that's my understanding of how best to deal with these questions. So in response to the question about the judicial review, which I understand is not urgent but related to the passage of the treaty through the two houses, then I'll leave the Minister who is responsible for that to respond in the usual way.
We need to lower the temperature. Everyone can be seated. The Minister can answer each question in full if he wishes to do so. John Slinger.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've been doing the maths about the Reform Leader's weekend. 23 hours in the air in his private jet, perhaps run by Man of the People Airways. 12 hours on the ground. That's a day and a half or so when he could have been delivering leaflets and knocking doors in the Gorton and Denton by-election. So does the Minister share my concern for the Reform candidate that he is missing out on the active support of the honourable member for Clacton and instead has to fall back on the support and endorsement of Tommy Robinson, aka Stephen Yaxley Lennon?
Minister.
I will leave the questions of how the honourable member for Clacton spends his time to the honourable member for Clacton. It was not a serious contribution to the debate on Diego Garcia in British Indian Ocean territories for him to travel there this weekend. I'm sure me and many of my colleagues will be in Gorton and Denton in the coming days.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's slightly bizarre to hear the Honourable Member for Clacton appear to make arguments that it's the Maldives that should own Diego Garcia. But if I turn to the question from the Leader of the House, let's remove the wider bill, since the Honourable Member does not wish to discuss the wider bill. Very simply, does Article 298 of UNCLOS exempt military bases, yes or no? He's a diplomat, so he knows the answer.
Yes, yes.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the reason why I don't really want to talk about the bill is it's not my bill, and it's quite detailed, and it's going through to both chambers of the House. I'm very happy to ensure that the relevant minister writes and provides the answer to the issue.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would agree with the honourable member for Clacton about the need for proper scrutiny of the vast sums of taxpayers' money that the government proposes to send to Mauritius. Yet I am puzzled that the honourable member for Clacton would travel all the way to the British Indian Ocean territory without a permit, given that Diego Garcia is a military base. The former leader of Reform UK and Wales is spending time staring at a security fence after pleading guilty to 8 counts of bribery. Does the Minister agree with me that the honourable member for Clacton can only be curious to know what it is to stare at a security fence?
Minister.
I suspect that's a question for the honourable member for Clacton. I think the practice of the former Reform leader in Wales is well known and understood, but having declined to comment on the bill, I think I'll have to decline to comment on the goings-on of the Reform Party.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Reports suggest that Foreign Office officials have been instructed to act as if this treaty is in full operation. Now, the reason why this is important is that we may be days or even hours away from military action against Iran. The key question here is, does the US then have to inform the UK and then inform Mauritius about wanting to use the base as a site for military operations? And if so, has the American government approached the UK about such use?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, for a reason long well established in this House, I won't be drawn on hypotheticals or ongoing military operations, but I would also like to reassure the House and the honourable member that the treaty is in force only once it has passed Parliament in the usual way.
Robert Jenrick.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the surrender of British sovereign territory began under my former party and has only been made worse by this Labour government. It is a damning indictment of the two old parties. The Minister represents the neighbouring town to me, and when he's not jet-setting, he presumably walks the same streets and talks to the same people. How can he hand on heart say that his constituents should spend up to £50 billion on this policy at a time when taxes are rising, bills are rising, and everyone in this country feels hard up?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I am appalled by the honourable member for Newark. Newark may well be a market town, but Lincoln is a city and has been for a very long time, and so I'd invite him to withdraw that remark. I don't receive a great deal of correspondence from constituents in Lincoln on this question. Mostly, my constituents in Lincoln prioritise Britain's national security. They understand, through our extensive history in Scampton, in Waddington, in Cranwell, of the importance that Lincolnshire plays in the UK's national security, and they would expect me and the rest of the government's ministers to prioritise that at all times.
David Reid.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think the vast majority of this House can agree that the arguments for giving away our Chagos Islands have been threadbare at best, which leads one to believe that there must be sensitive elements of this deal. So it's interesting to listen to one of the former SCDO special advisers, Ben Judah, and I quote, "Once you've been briefed, even partially, on what it does, i.e. the islands, the information gives you vertigo. Both now and in government, communicating the details to the public would be violating the Official Secrets Act." Now, given that this is going to cost the British taxpayer billions of pounds, does the Minister not believe that the government, it should be incumbent on the government to declassify some of this information so that us here in Parliament and the British public know what they're paying for?
No. I mean, we won't declassify what we do in RAF Waddington. We won't declassify what we do in defence of the realm, and it's not a serious proposition. There are obviously mechanisms through Parliament by which secret material can be considered through the ISC, and we'll continue to use that mechanism.
Rosendale.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think we're getting to the crux of this issue. The Minister was in the Foreign Office when these negotiations were taking place. He should know that the Île de Coin and Penos Banos, which is the atoll where Misli Mandarin, the First Minister appointed by the Chagossian people, is currently situated, he should know that it's nowhere near Diego Garcia. It is over 120 miles away from that military base. It poses no threat. The people on those islands pose no threat to security or to the military base at Diego Garcia. This is a sham. This government and the last government have been denying the truth. The truth is that the Chagossian people are British and they should be given the same rights of self-determination that the Falkland Islanders, the Gibraltarians and all British overseas territories rightly deserve.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm rather old-fashioned. The territory he refers to is within the British Indian Ocean territories. The law that applies to the whole of the territory. The travel advice, which I'm not sure the honourable member for Clacton acquainted himself with before he travelled, is clear on all of the islands. And so I understand that he is making a point about geographic distance, but the sovereignty and the law applies nonetheless. On the question of Chagossian representation, the honourable member will know that there is considerable disagreement within that community and that the Prime Minister to whom he refers is not internationally recognised.
I genuinely have respect for the Minister, as he knows, but I'm also very confused as to the government position, because as he will know from his time in the Foreign Office, one of the principal issues to which he refers is the fact that the previous US administration was not comfortable with the disputed status of this territory under international law. But it's now clear that the current President of the United States has no such concerns, has no such qualms. So given those circumstances, why are we continuing to burn capital with the current administration rather than saying, let's put this whole thing on hold and look for a solution that might actually work better both for the United States government and the interests of the United Kingdom?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for his question. To be clear about the current position, as he knows, there was support for the US, from the US administration for this treaty, which has not changed. There clearly has been a statement from the President of the United States more recently, which is very significant. And as I told the House, we are now discussing those concerns with the United States directly. We have a process going through Parliament in relation to the treaty. We will bring that back to Parliament at the appropriate time. We are pausing for discussions with our American counterparts.
Sir John Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Whatever members across this House might say, the member for Clacton's done a service to us in raising this matter today, because this is a dodgy deal founded on a bogus basis. Let me explain, Madam Deputy Speaker. When this was introduced to the House, we were told that it was done, the government were doing so on the basis they would be sanctioned internationally. And in particular, they described the most proximate and most potentially serious as the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. In subsequent written questions, I discovered that far from that, and I quote the answer to the question, the stance on Article 298 remains unchanged from prior declarations of 2003 and 2020, which means we can opt out. There was no obligation, no necessity, and I have to say, Mr. Speaker, and I use these words cautiously, because I know and like the Minister, and I know and like the Secretary of State Defence. It seems to me this House was inadvertently misled in the original statement, as is proved by the subsequent answers to written questions. So will the Minister clarify that urgently, because it is a very serious parliamentary matter and a matter of national significance?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable member is a colleague in Lincolnshire, so I don't like to disagree with him, including on the value of the honourable member's weekend trip. On this question of 298, I can hear the strength of views across the House. As I understand it, this is a particularly complex and contentious area of law. I hear the House's desire for further clarification from the government, and I'm sure the relevant minister will be very happy to write. I am not the relevant minister. I'm the Minister for the Middle East, as you know.
Alistair. Just to continue on this theme, it was only a few months ago that this House was told that if we didn't approve this treaty, there would within weeks be binding international judgments against us. What international tribunal was ever capable of ruling on a military base? What tribunal was the government talking about? Because we know that the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea has no jurisdiction on military bases and no jurisdiction on sovereignty. So what on earth was the government trying to persuade this House about?
Madam Deputy Speaker, again, there is this desire to suggest that there was no issue, that the 11 rounds started by the previous government were done for no reason, and that there was not substance behind our concerns, no substance behind the support. I quote from US Secretary Hegseth: "This is a vital military base for America. The UK's very important deal with Mauritius secures the operational capabilities of the base and key US national security interests. We are confident the base is protected for many years ahead." We were engaged with a real problem, seeking to find a real solution. If members would like more on some of the particulars around 298, which I have heard and I've committed that we will write, then we're very happy to provide it. But this is not a new argument about this treaty.
Dr. Andrew Morrison.
How much political capital is this government prepared to burn through with a highly transactional White House in order to secure more helpful language on the Chagos Islands?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, this government will seek to pursue Britain's national interests. We are sometimes going to disagree, as the Prime Minister has made clear, with our friends and allies in public. We will seek to resolve those issues in private, but the principles driving the decisions of the ministers of this government will be Britain's interests and our national security.
Rebecca Paul.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Minister for his statement, but I would suggest in future that the appropriate Minister is sent that can actually respond to our questions. But let's give this another go. Here's another straightforward question for you, for the Minister. Apologies. Has the government declined the US permission to use Diego Garcia and other UK bases, including Fairford, to launch strikes on Iran?
Yeah.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thought it was rather disparaging comments about my preparedness, so I would encourage her to listen to my previous comments, which is I won't be drawn on operational questions for reasons which are about whether a specific RAF base is being used. Would you have, would the honourable members opposite have been drawn? I think they would not have.
No. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We have been saying for months that to give away the Chagos Islands and pay for the privilege is complete and utter madness. Having ran this through, we are now told that the government is taking, and I quote, a pause for thought. Can the Minister explain why the government signed off on this disastrous and disastrously expensive handover agreement without having thought about it first?
Minister.
Interesting that the honourable member starts with months. If we go back years, when she was a SPAD in the previous government and the talks were conducted, there was clearly recognition within the Conservative government that there was a real issue to be addressed. You pursued talks. You took them into text. You took them into...
Order. The two U's in one go, Minister. Have another go. Come on, off you go.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I apologise. I am failing again. The honourable member will appreciate the scepticism on this side of the House when the Conservative government started this process, when two American administrations recognised that there was a real issue to be addressed here, when this American administration supported the steps that we had taken in May.
Thank you,
Madam Deputy Speaker. I would push back slightly on what the Minister is saying.
As we know, the discussions between the UK and the government of Mauritius around the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands started in January 2009 under the previous Labour government, as confirmed to me by the Minister for the Overseas Territories. So I think you might want to bear that in mind. But the question that I want to raise is around Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, who prior to being the National Security Advisor was the Prime Minister's Special Envoy to the British Indian Ocean Territories and still is today. Prior to being appointed on the 6th of September, he conducted meetings with the FCDO. He confirmed that he has already seen the deal prior to being in post and was then given a hard copy of the deal when he reached Port Louis. When did he attend Port Louis? Was it prior to his appointment as the PM Special Envoy? And what security clearance did he have when he saw the Chagos deal for the first time?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, on the honourable member's first question about when talks started, as I understood it, it started on the Conservative government, but I'm very happy to check the Foreign Office record and come back on that question. Whether they were started in 2009 or indeed in 2010, that was, if I may say so, quite a long period in which the Conservative government was in charge, in which this strength of feeling was not demonstrated, and indeed other honourable members did not raise these issues in their time. Well, the suggestion, if I may say so, Madam Deputy Speaker, from the Conservative benches that they were vociferously against this. They just took 11 occasions to try and work that out. Doesn't feel very plausible to me. But the honourable member asked me some specific questions about Jonathan Powell's work as an envoy. I thought I answered the first set of questions.
Got a question, Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for his answers? If the Minister was a goalkeeper, he would be tired out and exhausted at this stage. But maybe he's kept the ball out of the net. But we'll see how that goes. You know, the Minister will forgive me for being a bit obtuse. But it was my understanding that the leasing of the base at massive cost to the working person in this country was to secure national interest and safety. Forgive me, I therefore cannot grasp why government would possibly be working against our greatest ally, the US of A, and sending an internationally resounding message to outline that our base cannot be used if it is deemed necessary. So will the Minister please do this, outline what discussions have been held in the last number of days to correct any belief that we do not stand fully with our American allies?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable member usually thanks me for my tone and on this occasion, so I'll reflect on that afterwards. He asked me about sensitive security discussions between the United States and the United Kingdom, and I'm not really in a position to be drawn. We do discuss questions of Middle East security with the United States. The Foreign Secretary set out very clearly at the Security Council the malign influence that Iran, which is what I think he is referring to, have played in the region, and our efforts to ensure that they do not get a nuclear weapon. A diplomatic solution is the most desirable, and that is what we're working towards.
That is the end of the urgent question. Point of order, Sir Edward
A point of order on this specific urgent question. You or your advisers, Madam Deputy Speaker, will be aware of a letter that I and my colleagues have sent to the Speaker about this issue, particularly pertaining to the apparent discrepancy between answers given in this House on the 22nd of May and in a written question on the 12th of February. The Minister said that he was not able to answer that, although in my long experience of this place, Ministers are bound by collective responsibility and therefore they answer for the whole government. I give notice, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I will give... The Minister has said he wants an answer to be given on this point. I give notice, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I will give the government time to consider, and on Monday morning I will put in for an urgent question specifically on this discrepancy of the information given to the House.
The Father of the House, no doubt, has a huge amount of respect across the whole House, and the Father of the House knows that we don't discuss urgent questions publicly, let alone on the floor of the House, so that was a slight error on his part. Let me just deal with this point of order. The honourable member also knows that the Chair is not responsible for the content of the responses provided by ministers, if only we were, but he has no doubt most robustly got his point on the record. Point of order, James Hartley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And just further to that very point, and there is a concern on this side at least, that we have heard repeatedly from the Minister that he is not the correct minister for responding to the questions we have asked. Our understanding procedurally is that ministers are accountable to Parliament and that in coming before Parliament they are here to be held to account. The key question, just to remind you, Madam Deputy Speaker, which refers to the previous point of order, is about the fact that the Secretary of State for Defence last May said that Diego Garcia would be weeks away from a legal ruling unless this treaty was agreed to. We are concerned on this side that that is not correct, that he may have inadvertently misled the House, because under Article 298 of UNCLOS, it provides an opt-out for binding rulings in relation to, and I quote, military activities. It's a fundamental legal question on the treaty. We should surely have a minister in front of us who can answer questions on the treaty.
I thank the honourable member for giving me notice of his point of order. First of all, the Chair is not responsible for which minister the government puts forward to respond to an urgent question. If the minister wishes to respond at this point to the urgent question, he chooses to do so. Okay.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I hope the House will beg my forgiveness. As the House knows, I am the Middle East Minister. I'm on this occasion the duty minister, so I am here to answer any question that I can, but where I think greater precision can be provided in writing, rather than risking providing the House anything other than the fullest possible answers, I think that is appropriate. As it happens, the Minister responsible for the bill is travelling back to the UK today. He would have been more than delighted, I'm sure, to answer this urgent question, but not being in a position to do so, I want to ensure the House gets properly precise answers.
The honourable member may not be satisfied with the response, but that is a response nonetheless. We will not continue the debate. Point of order, Ben Obsujecti.
Madam Deputy Speaker, on the 9th of February, I asked a specific name-day question around the role of Jonathan Powell in the Chagos Islands deal that was due for answer on the 12th of February. It is now the 25th of February and it still hasn't been responded to by the government. How can I best encourage the government to produce timely and accurate answers to name-day written questions on this subject?
I'm sure the Treasury front bench, including the ministers, are hearing this. It's just not good enough when members are putting in bits of information, putting in written ministerial questions, and the responses are not coming back in a timely fashion. I can see the Treasury front bench and the ministers nodding. One can assume that a response will be forthcoming very, very quickly. And the member's got his point on the record as well. Now, we don't want to continue the debate. I think we can allow the front benches to shuffle over so we can start the next urgent question.
Right.